The little girl's hands trembled as she gripped the handlebars of her pink bicycle, her only possession left in this world. 6-year-old Imani Davis stood on the corner of 5th and Madison, her brown eyes pleading with every person who passed by. Her voice, small and cracking, called out the same words over and over. "Please, sir. Please, ma'am. Buy my bike. My mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days." Most people walked faster when they heard her. Some pretended not to see her at all. A few dropped coins into her small hand, but coins couldn't buy the food her mother needed. Coins couldn't pay for the shelter they'd lost. Coins couldn't undo what had been done to them. Behind her, sitting on a cold bench, was Rochelle Davis. Once, she had been the proud owner of Sweet Grace Bakery, a woman whose chocolate cake had been featured in the city's food magazine, a woman who wore bright red dresses and smiled at everyone. Now, she wore a faded blue jacket that someone had left at a bus stop, and her beautiful face was gaunt from hunger. She watched her daughter beg strangers to buy the one toy she had left, and every word Imani spoke felt like a knife in her heart. But what choice did she have? Preston Cole had taken everything. Her business, her home, her bank accounts, her credit, her reputation. He had done it so carefully, so methodically, that by the time she realized what was happening, there was nothing left to fight with. No money for lawyers. No proof that anyone would believe. He had left her with absolutely nothing except her daughter and that pink bicycle. 2 days without food. 3 nights sleeping in a shelter that smelled like bleach and desperation. 4 months since everything fell apart. And now, watching Imani try to sell the birthday gift Rochelle had saved for months to buy, Rochelle felt something inside her break completely. This was rock bottom. This was the moment when she had to accept that her little girl was hungry, and there was nothing she could do about it. "Mommy," Imani called out, turning back to look at her. "Mommy, someone will buy it soon. I know they will. Then you can eat." Rochelle tried to smile, but tears filled her eyes instead. How had her life come to this? How had she let this happen? The questions tormented her every moment, but the answers didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was that her baby girl was standing on a street corner trying to save her mother's life with a pink bicycle. The afternoon sun was beginning to set when a black car pulled up to the curb. A man in a gray suit stepped out. He was tall, probably in his mid-40s, with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. He looked at Imani, then at the bicycle, then at Rochelle on the bench. "How much for the bike?" he asked Imani. "Whatever you can give, sir," Imani said quickly, hope flooding her voice. "My mommy needs to eat. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. Please, sir. It's a really good bike. It still works perfect." The man knelt down to Imani's level. "What's your name?" "Imani." "That's a beautiful name." "I'm Thomas." He looked at the bicycle more carefully, running his hand over the handlebars. "This is a very nice bike. I can see you've taken good care of it." "It was my birthday present," Imani said, and her voice got quieter. "But mommy needs food more than I need a bike." Thomas stood up slowly. He pulled out his wallet, and Rochelle watched from the bench, too tired and too hungry to feel anything but numbness. He handed Imani several bills. She looked down at them with wide eyes. "Mister, this is $200. "That's what the bike is worth," Thomas said gently. "Maybe more." But he didn't take the bicycle. Instead, he walked over to where Rochelle sat on the bench. She looked up at him, and for the first time in months, she felt a spark of something other than despair. She felt shame. Here was this successful man in his expensive suit, and here she was, letting her 6-year-old daughter sell her toys for food money. "Ma'am," Thomas said quietly, "my name is Thomas Bennett. I'd like to help you and your daughter. Would you allow me to do that? Have you ever wondered what you would do if you lost everything? If the person you trusted most in the world took it all away? Would you have the strength to keep going for your child? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means everything." Rochelle stared at the man standing in front of her. Thomas Bennett. The name sounded familiar, but her mind was too foggy from hunger to place it. She should say something, but words felt heavy in her mouth. "Ma'am?" Thomas said again. "I'd really like to help." "We don't need charity," Rochelle heard herself say, though even as the words came out, she knew they were foolish. They needed exactly that. They needed help desperately. Thomas sat down on the bench beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "It's not charity. It's one human being helping another. That's all." Imani ran over, clutching the money in her small hands. "Mommy, look. We can buy food now. We can eat." Rochelle took the money from her daughter's hands and tried to hand it back to Thomas. "This is too much. The bike isn't worth this." "Keep it," Thomas said firmly. "Please." Use it for food and whatever else you need. But the bike, Rochelle started. Keep the bike too, Thomas said. He looked at Imani. A little girl shouldn't have to sell her birthday present. That's not right. Tears started falling down Rochelle's face. She couldn't stop them. This stranger was showing her more kindness than anyone had in months. Why are you doing this? Thomas was quiet for a moment. Because someone helped me once when I needed it. Because it's the right thing to do. Because... He paused, looking at Imani, because no child should have to worry about whether their mother will eat. Rochelle wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. There's a restaurant 2 blocks from here, Thomas said. Please, let me buy you both a proper meal. After that, we can talk about what happened and how I might be able to help further. Every instinct in Rochelle wanted to refuse. She had been independent her whole life. She had built a business from nothing. She had taken care of her sick mother and raised her daughter alone. Accepting help felt like admitting defeat. But then she looked at Imani, whose face was so hopeful, whose small body was too thin, who had been brave and strong for weeks while her mother fell apart. For Imani she would accept help. For Imani she would do anything. Okay, Rochelle said quietly. Okay. Thank you. Thomas smiled, and it was a genuine smile that reached his eyes. My car is right here. Let's get you both some food. 20 minutes later, Rochelle and Imani sat in a booth at a quiet restaurant, and Rochelle watched her daughter eat chicken and rice like she hadn't seen food in days. Because she hadn't. Rochelle forced herself to eat slowly, even though her body screamed for her to devour everything on her plate. She hadn't realized how weak she had become until she tried to cut her food and found her hands shaking. Thomas sat across from them, drinking coffee and not eating. He watched them with an expression that Rochelle couldn't quite read. Concern, yes. But also something else. Anger, maybe. Not at them, but at whatever had brought them to this point. When Imani finally pushed away her empty plate, looking satisfied and sleepy, Thomas spoke. Tell me what happened, he said simply. If you're comfortable sharing. Rochelle glanced at her daughter, who was starting to nod off in the booth. She pulled Imani close, and the little girl rested her head on her mother's shoulder. It's a long story, Rochelle said. I have time, Thomas replied. So Rochelle began to talk. She told him about Sweet Grace Bakery, the business she had built from the ground up. She told him about Preston Cole, the man she had loved and trusted, the man who had been her business partner and her fiancé. She told him how her mother had gotten sick, how she had been distracted caring for her in those final months. And she told him how, piece by piece, Preston had stolen everything. He forged my signature on documents, Rochelle said, her voice barely above a whisper. He took out loans in my name. He transferred the business ownership to himself. By the time I realized what was happening, my mother had passed away and I had nothing. No business, no home, no money. He even destroyed my credit so I couldn't rent an apartment or get a job. Thomas's jaw tightened as he listened. Did you go to the police? I tried, Rochelle said. But Preston had covered his tracks well. He had documents that looked legitimate. He told them I was bitter about our breakup and making false accusations. Without money for a lawyer, I couldn't fight him. I couldn't prove anything. Where is he now? Thomas asked. Living in my house, Rochelle said, and her voice broke. Running my bakery. Using my recipes. Living my life like he didn't destroy mine. Thomas pulled out his phone and started typing. What's his full name? Preston Cole. Why? I'm making some notes, Thomas said. What was your bakery called? Sweet Grace Bakery. On 7th Street. Thomas nodded, still typing. Then he looked up at Rochelle, and his expression was determined. Here's what's going to happen. Tonight, I'm putting you and Imani up in a hotel. A good one with room service and comfortable beds. Tomorrow, I'm having my legal team look into Preston Cole and everything he did. And we're going to fix this. I can't pay you back, Rochelle said immediately. I don't have anything. I don't want you to pay me back, Thomas said. I want you to accept help. Can you do that? Rochelle looked down at her sleeping daughter. She thought about the shelter they were supposed to return to tonight, with its hard cots and suspicious looks from the staff. She thought about the streets they'd been walking for months. She thought about Imani's small voice saying, "Buy my bike, sir." Yes, Rochelle said finally. Yes, I can accept help. Thank you. Thomas smiled. Good. Let's get you both to that hotel. The hotel room was more beautiful than anywhere Rochelle had been in months. Clean white sheets, soft pillows, a bathroom with hot water and soap. Imani had fallen asleep almost immediately, curled up in the big bed like she was afraid it might disappear. Rochelle stood in the shower for a long time, letting the hot water wash away months of street dirt and shelter grime. She cried quietly, her tears mixing with the water, and she let herself feel everything she had been pushing down for so long. The fear, the anger, the shame, the grief. All of it poured out of her. When she finally emerged, wrapped in the hotel robe, she found that someone had delivered bags of clothing to their room. Women's clothes in her size, children's clothes in Imani's size. All clean and new. There was also a note from Thomas. Sleep well. I'll call in the morning. Rochelle sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully. For the first time in months she felt something like hope. Maybe this nightmare could end. Maybe they could survive this. Her mind drifted back to 3 years ago when everything had been so different. When she had been different. Sweet Grace Bakery had been her dream since childhood. Her grandmother Grace had taught her to bake, had shown her how to make cakes that tasted like love and cookies that melted in your mouth. When Grandma Grace died, Rochelle had sworn to honor her memory by opening a bakery in her name. It had taken 5 years of working 2 jobs, saving every penny, learning the business side of things. But finally, when Imani was 3 years old, Rochelle had opened the doors to Sweet Grace Bakery. The little shop on 7th Street had been perfect. Big windows, vintage ovens, pale yellow walls. The first year had been hard, but Rochelle had worked tirelessly. She baked before dawn and closed after dark. She created recipes that made people smile. Her red velvet cake became famous in the neighborhood. Her lemon bars were featured in a local magazine. By the 2nd year she needed help. That's when Preston Cole walked into her bakery. He had been charming from the start. Tall and handsome with an easy smile and a degree in business management. He told her he loved her pastries and wanted to help her grow the business. He had ideas about marketing, expansion, efficiency. Rochelle had been hesitant at first. She liked running things her own way. But Preston was persuasive. He showed her profit projections, growth models, 5-year plans. He talked about opening more locations, about franchising, about making Sweet Grace a household name. Slowly she had let him in. First as a consultant, then as a business partner. He handled the paperwork, the finances, the business registrations. She focused on what she loved, baking and serving customers. Their partnership became a relationship. Preston would stay late helping her clean up. He would bring her coffee in the morning. He made her laugh after long, exhausting days. He met Imani and was kind to her. He seemed to understand the delicate balance of being a single mother and a business owner. After a year of dating, he proposed. Rochelle said yes. She believed she had found someone who would be a true partner in life and business. She believed she could trust him completely. That was her mistake. The warning signs had been there, but she hadn't seen them. Or maybe she hadn't wanted to see them. The way he slowly took over more of the business operations. The way he insisted she didn't need to worry about the paperwork. The way he had her sign documents without really explaining what they were, saying, "It's just business stuff, trust me." And she had trusted him. Then her mother got sick. Cancer, aggressive and fast-moving. Rochelle had split her time between the bakery and the hospital, and Preston had insisted he would handle everything at the business. "You focus on your mom," he had said. "I've got this." She had been grateful. She had thought he was being supportive. Her mother died after 3 months. Rochelle had been devastated, lost in grief. She had taken a week off from the bakery to plan the funeral and try to process her loss. Preston had told her to take all the time she needed. When she came back, everything had changed. Preston told her they needed to talk. He sat her down in the bakery office, in the space she had created, surrounded by her grandmother's old baking tools that she kept on the shelves, and he told her the business was failing. He showed her papers that said they were in debt. He showed her documents that said the bakery was now solely in his name. He showed her loan applications with her signature, loans she didn't remember taking out. "You signed these?" he said calmly. "You gave me power of attorney. The business is mine now." Rochelle had stared at him in shock. "What are you talking about? I never signed away my business." "You did," Preston said, and he showed her the documents. Her signature was on them. She didn't remember signing them, but there it was, her name in her handwriting. "This can't be legal," Rochelle had said, her voice rising. "You tricked me. You forged these." "Prove it," Preston had replied. "You signed power of attorney when your mom got sick. Remember? I told you it was so I could handle business emergencies while you were at the hospital. You signed it. That gave me the legal right to make all these decisions." Rochelle had felt the world tilting. She remembered signing something, yes. Preston had brought papers to the hospital one day, said it was just a formality so he could sign checks and handle vendors while she was dealing with her mother's illness. She had been exhausted and distracted, and she had signed without reading carefully. "Get out," Preston had said then, and his voice had been cold. "This is my business now. You're trespassing." Rochelle had refused to leave. She had called the police. But when they arrived, Preston had shown them the legal documents. Everything appeared legitimate. The officers had told Rochelle she needed to settle this in court, and they had asked her to leave the premises. That had been 4 months ago. Since then, Rochelle had learned the full extent of what Preston had done. He had taken out multiple loans in her name, destroying her credit. He had transferred the house deed to himself, a house she had been buying for 10 years. He had emptied their joint bank account, the one she had foolishly opened when they got engaged. He had even canceled her phone and her car insurance. Without money for a lawyer, without proof that anyone would take seriously, without even a place to live, Rochelle had been powerless. She and Imani had ended up on the streets, then in shelters, struggling every day just to survive. And Preston? Preston was living in her house, running her bakery, probably sleeping soundly every night without a single regret. Rochelle wiped her eyes and looked around the hotel room. But maybe things were about to change. Maybe Thomas Bennett, whoever he was, really could help. Maybe justice was possible after all. She pulled the clean clothes from the bag and laid them out for Imani to wear in the morning. A bright green dress that would look beautiful on her daughter. She folded it carefully, then climbed into bed beside Imani. For the first time in 4 months, Rochelle fell asleep feeling safe. Morning came with sunlight streaming through the hotel curtains. Imani woke up confused, looking around the unfamiliar room with wide eyes. Then she remembered, and a huge smile spread across her face. "Mommy, we're still here. I thought maybe I dreamed it." "We're really here, baby," Rochelle said, hugging her daughter tight. They ordered breakfast from room service, something Rochelle never thought she'd be able to do again. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, orange juice. Imani ate like it was a feast, and Rochelle found herself smiling watching her daughter be happy. The phone in the room rang around 10 in the morning. It was Thomas. "Good morning," he said. "How did you both sleep?" "Better than we have in months," Rochelle admitted. "Thank you again for this." "I'm glad. Listen, I have some people I'd like you to meet. My legal team. They're going to help us figure out what Preston did and how to fix it. Would you be comfortable meeting with them this afternoon?" "Yes," Rochelle said without hesitation. She remembered her promise to accept help. "Yes, absolutely." "Good. I'll have a car pick you up at 2. The driver's name is Frank. He'll bring you to my office." "Okay. Thank you, Thomas." "You don't have to keep thanking me," he said gently. "I'm just doing what anyone should do." After she hung up, Rochelle helped Imani get dressed in the new clothes. The green dress fit perfectly and Imani twirled around happily. Rochelle chose a blue blouse and black pants for herself, relieved to have clean, proper clothing again. At exactly 2 o'clock there was a knock on the door. A kind-looking older man introduced himself as Frank and led them to a sleek car waiting outside. The drive through the city felt surreal. Just yesterday, Rochelle had been sitting on a cold bench watching her daughter try to sell her bicycle. Now she was being driven to meet lawyers who might actually help her. Thomas's office was in a tall building downtown. The lobby was marble and glass, impressive and intimidating. Frank led them to the elevators and up to the 20th floor. The doors opened to reveal a reception area with Bennett Industries written in silver letters on the wall. Thomas met them in the lobby and Rochelle finally understood who he was. Thomas Bennett. Bennett Industries. One of the most successful businessmen in the city. She had seen his name in the newspaper, had heard people talk about his company. And this man, this incredibly wealthy and powerful man, had stopped to help her and her daughter. "Thank you for coming," Thomas said, shaking her hand formally. He smiled at Imani. "Did you bring your bike?" "It's back at the hotel," Imani said. "We kept it just like you said." "Good." Thomas led them down a hallway to a conference room. Inside were 3 people, 2 men and a woman, all in professional attire. "Rochelle, Imani, I'd like you to meet my legal team. This is Richard Foster, my head attorney. Amanda Chin, who specializes in fraud cases. And James Wilson, our investigator." Everyone shook hands and sat down. Imani sat close to her mother, and Rochelle held her daughter's hand under the table. "Ms. Davis," Richard began, "Mr. Bennett has explained the basics of your situation. We'd like to hear the full story from you, every detail you can remember. Nothing is too small or insignificant." So Rochelle told the story again. This time she went through everything methodically. The dates when Preston joined her business. The documents she remembered signing. The power of attorney she had given him during her mother's illness. The way he had systematically taken control of everything. The loans she didn't take out. The forged signatures she couldn't prove were forged. Amanda took notes constantly. James typed on his laptop. Richard asked questions, gentle but thorough. Did Preston have access to your personal documents? Birth certificate, social security card, bank statements. Yes, Rochelle admitted. We were engaged. We lived together for about a year before everything happened. And the house you mentioned, the one he now lives in. Is it in your name or his? It was in my name. I'd been paying the mortgage for 10 years. But somehow he transferred it to himself. Did you sign a quitclaim deed? Amanda asked. I don't know. Maybe. He had me sign so many things, said it was all business paperwork. I trusted him. That's understandable, Amanda said kindly. People often trust their partners. That's what makes this kind of fraud so devastating. They talked for over an hour. Imani fell asleep in her chair, exhausted from all the changes and emotions of the past day. Rochelle answered every question as honestly as she could, even when the answers made her feel foolish or naive. Finally, Richard sat back in his chair. Ms. Davis, I'm not going to sugar-sweet this situation. What Preston did to you is complex and will take time to unravel. However, based on what you've told us, I believe we have grounds for criminal fraud charges and civil litigation. Really? Rochelle's voice came out as barely a whisper. Really? Amanda confirmed. If Preston forged signatures, took out loans in your name without your knowledge, and used fraudulent documents to steal your property and business, those are serious crimes. We'll need to prove it, but it can be done. How long will it take? Rochelle asked. That's hard to say, Richard admitted. It could be months. These things don't happen overnight. But we'll start immediately. Thomas, who had been sitting quietly, spoke up. In the meantime, Rochelle, I'd like to offer you a job. Rochelle looked at him in surprise. A job? At my company? Nothing fancy, just something to give you steady income while the legal process moves forward. I need someone in our hospitality department, coordinating events and managing schedules. Does that interest you? Rochelle didn't know what to say. I don't have event planning experience. But you ran a successful bakery, Thomas said. You managed vendors, coordinated deliveries, handled customers, dealt with timing and logistics. Those are exactly the skills needed for this position. Plus, he smiled, I have it on good authority that you make incredible cakes, which would be useful for our corporate events. I would love that job, Rochelle said, feeling tears forming again. Thank you. Great. You can start next week. That gives you time to get settled. Also about housing, Thomas continued, I own several properties in the city. One of them is a 2-bedroom apartment in a good school district. It's vacant right now. I'd like you and Imani to live there. I can't afford rent, Rochelle said quietly. Not yet. We'll work out a payment plan once you're back on your feet, Thomas said. For now, just consider it part of your employment package. Rochelle looked at this man who had appeared in her life like an answer to prayers she'd stopped believing would be heard. Why are you doing all this? Thomas was quiet for a moment. 10 years ago, I made some bad business decisions. I trusted the wrong person, someone who nearly destroyed my company. I almost lost everything I'd built. A man named Joseph Price, an investor who believed in me, stepped in and saved my company. He didn't have to. He had no obligation to help me. But he did, and he told me something I've never forgotten. What did he say? Rochelle asked. He said that success means nothing if you don't use it to help others. He said that being wealthy is about more than money, it's about making sure the people around you have what they need to succeed too. He helped me and he asked me to promise that I would help others when I could. So that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping my promise. Rochelle wiped her eyes. I will pay you back. Every penny. When this is over and I have my business back, I will pay you back everything. If you want to, Thomas said. But honestly, Rochelle, I don't need you to. I just need you to accept the help and get back on your feet. That's payment enough. James, the investigator, cleared his throat. I have some preliminary information already. I did a quick search this morning. Preston Cole is currently operating Sweet Grace Bakery under a new business license issued 2 months ago. The property is registered to him. The business accounts are in his name. However, he smiled slightly, there are some irregularities that jumped out immediately. We'll dig deeper. What kind of irregularities? Rochelle asked. The dates on some documents don't match. There are signatures that look similar but have subtle differences. And most interesting, Preston applied for several loans right before your business transfer was finalized. That suggests premeditation. He planned this. Anger surged through Rochelle, hot and fierce. He planned it from the beginning, didn't he? He never loved me. He just wanted my business. We'll find out, Amanda said firmly. And we'll make sure he pays for what he did. The meeting wrapped up shortly after. Thomas arranged for Frank to drive them back to the hotel, and Richard promised to call with updates as the investigation progressed. In the car, Imani woke up and looked at her mother. Mommy, are things going to be okay now? Rochelle kissed her daughter's forehead. Yes, baby. Things are going to be okay. Finally. The next few days passed in a blur of paperwork and new experiences. Thomas had his assistant, a woman named Patricia, help Rochelle set up a bank account and get identification documents replaced. Everything Preston had taken or destroyed, they began rebuilding piece by piece. The apartment Thomas provided was in a safe neighborhood with good schools. It was on the 3rd floor of a brick building with big windows that let in natural light. The living room had a comfortable couch, the kitchen had real appliances, and the bedrooms had actual beds with thick mattresses. To Rochelle it felt like a palace. Imani had her own room for the first time in months. The little girl had cried with happiness when she saw it, running from the bed to the closet to the window overlooking a small park. Is this really ours, Mommy? Really? Really, Rochelle had assured her. This is our home now. The first night in the apartment, Rochelle cooked dinner for the first time since everything fell apart. Just simple pasta and sauce, but it felt meaningful. She and Imani ate at their small dining table, and afterwards they watched a movie on the television that came with the apartment. Normal things. Things other families did without thinking about them. Things Rochelle had thought she might never do again. On Monday morning, Rochelle started her new job at Bennett Industries. Patricia showed her around, introduced her to the team, and explained her responsibilities. The hospitality department coordinated all company events, from small meetings to large conferences. Rochelle would be managing schedules, working with vendors, and helping plan menus. Her coworkers were friendly but curious. News had spread that the boss had personally hired her. Some people whispered behind her back, probably wondering what her connection to Thomas was. Rochelle kept her head down and focused on learning her new job. Thomas stopped by her desk that first afternoon. How's it going? Good, Rochelle said honestly. Everyone's been very welcoming. I'm glad. Listen, I wanted to let you know that Richard has filed preliminary motions in your case. It's officially started. Rochelle's heart jumped. Really? Already? Really? They're moving fast. Amanda found evidence that Preston forged at least 3 signatures on loan documents. The handwriting analysis came back showing significant differences from your actual signature. That's a good start. What happens now? Now we build the case, Thomas said. James is investigating Preston's financial records. We're looking at every transaction, every document, everything. It takes time, but we'll get there. I still can't believe you're doing all this, Rochelle said. You barely know me. Thomas smiled. I know enough. I know you're a hard worker. I know you love your daughter. I know you were taken advantage of by someone you trusted. That's all I need to know. That evening, Rochelle enrolled Imani in the elementary school 2 blocks from their apartment. The principal, Mrs. Rodriguez, was kind and understanding when Rochelle explained their situation in vague terms. Imani would start classes the following week. She might need some extra support, Mrs. Rodriguez said gently. Children who have experienced instability often do. We have counselors on staff who can help. Thank you, Rochelle said. I appreciate that. Walking home with Imani, watching her daughter skip happily down the sidewalk, Rochelle felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not complete peace, not yet. There was still the legal battle ahead, still the confrontation with Preston that would eventually come. But for the first time in months, she felt like maybe they would survive this. Maybe they would be okay. That night, after Imani went to bed, Rochelle sat on her couch and cried. Good tears this time. Grateful tears. She thought about the moment when Imani had been standing on that corner trying to sell her bike. She thought about how close they had come to complete disaster. And she thought about Thomas Bennett, the stranger who had stopped his car and changed everything. Her phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but something told her to answer. Hello? Rochelle Davis? A woman's voice. Yes. This is Angela Morrison. I'm calling from City Hospital. I was your mother's nurse during her final weeks. Rochelle's breath caught. I remember you. You were very kind to her. I was calling because I found something while cleaning out some old files. Your mother had asked me to hold on to an envelope for her, to give to you if anything ever happened. I apologize for taking so long to reach out. The envelope got misplaced and I just found it. Would you like me to mail it to you, or would you prefer to pick it up? I can pick it up, Rochelle said, her voice shaking. When? I'm working night shift this week. I could meet you in the hospital lobby tomorrow evening around 7? I'll be there. Thank you for calling. After hanging up, Rochelle sat in the darkness of her living room, wondering what her mother had left for her. A letter? Money? Advice? Her mother had been a wise woman, strong and practical. What would she have wanted Rochelle to know? The next day at work flew by. Rochelle coordinated a vendor meeting and helped plan the menu for an upcoming board dinner. The work kept her mind busy, but underneath everything she kept thinking about that envelope. At 6:30 she left Imani with Patricia, who had kindly offered to babysit. Take your time, Patricia said. We'll order pizza and watch cartoons. The hospital brought back painful memories. The last time Rochelle had been here was the night her mother died. She had held her hand, told her she loved her, watched her take her final breath. It had been the worst night of Rochelle's life. Angela Morrison met her in the lobby, still in her nurse's scrubs. She was a middle-aged black woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She handed Rochelle a manila envelope. Your mother gave this to me about a week before she passed, Angela said. She told me, if anything happens to me, if my daughter ever needs this, please make sure she gets it. I'm sorry it took me so long. It's okay, Rochelle said, clutching the envelope. Thank you for keeping it safe. Your mother was a strong woman, Angela said. She worried about you constantly. She talked about you and your little girl all the time. I think she knew something was wrong even then. She kept saying she wished she could protect you. Tears filled Rochelle's eyes. She tried. She always tried. Rochelle drove back to her apartment, the envelope on the passenger seat. She picked up Imani from Patricia's place, thanked her profusely, and got her daughter ready for bed. Only after Imani was asleep did Rochelle finally open the envelope. Inside was a letter in her mother's handwriting and a small key. My dearest Rochelle, the letter began. If you're reading this, I'm gone and I pray you're doing okay. I worry about you and Preston. I know you love him, but something about him troubles me. I can't explain it. Mother's intuition maybe. So I'm leaving you this key. It opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank, box number 487. Inside you'll find some money I saved over the years. Not much, but enough to help if you ever need it. Use it wisely. Use it to take care of yourself and Imani. And remember, baby girl, you are stronger than you know. You have your grandmother's spirit and my stubbornness. Whatever happens, you can survive it. I love you forever. Mom. Rochelle held the letter to her chest and sobbed. Her mother had known. Somehow she had known to prepare for this. And even now, months after her death, she was still trying to take care of her daughter. The next morning, Rochelle went to First National Bank during her lunch break. The safety deposit box contained $10,000 in cash and a note, for Rochelle's emergency fund, to be used only if absolutely necessary. Rochelle sat in the small private room the bank provided and counted the money with shaking hands. This was her mother's life savings, probably every penny she had managed to put aside from her modest retirement income. She had saved it and hidden it just in case her daughter ever needed it. Thank you, Mama, Rochelle whispered. Thank you. That afternoon, Rochelle went to Thomas's office. She told him about the money. This is yours, Rochelle said, taking out her checkbook. The bank had set up her account with checks. I want to start paying you back. Rochelle, no, Thomas said. Keep that money. You'll need it. Please, Rochelle said. Let me do this. My mother saved this money to help me. The best way I can honor her is by using it to stand on my own feet. Please let me pay you back for the hotel, for the clothes, for everything. Thomas looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. If it's important to you, okay. It is, Rochelle said. It really is. She wrote a check for $2,000, covering all the expenses from that first week. It felt good to hand it to him. It felt like reclaiming a piece of her dignity. If you're enjoying Rochelle's journey from desperation to hope, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a comment. Have you ever had someone show you unexpected kindness? Share your story below. It helps more than you know. 3 weeks into her new job, Rochelle was settling into a routine. Wake up, get Imani ready for school, drop her off, go to work, pick her up, make dinner, help with homework, bedtime. Normal life. The kind of life she had thought was lost forever. James Wilson, the investigator, called her one Thursday afternoon. Can you come to the office? We found some things you need to see. Rochelle's stomach tightened with anxiety, but she agreed. Thomas arranged for Patricia to pick up Imani from school, and Rochelle went to the conference room where she'd first met the legal team. Amanda and Richard were already there along with James. Spread across the table were documents, photographs, and printed spreadsheets. We've been digging into Preston Cole's background, James began, and we found something interesting. This isn't the first time he's done this. Rochelle's heart stopped. What do you mean? Amanda slid a photograph across the table. It showed Preston with another woman, both smiling at a restaurant. This is Claire Williams. 5 years ago, she owned a small catering business in the next city over. Preston was her boyfriend and business partner. Let me guess, Rochelle said bitterly. He stole everything from her too. Close, James said. She accused him of embezzlement and fraud. But she didn't have enough proof to make the charges stick. He agreed to a settlement, paid her some money, and disappeared. Then he showed up in this city and found you. Rochelle felt sick. So I wasn't special. I was just his next target. It appears that way, Richard said gently. But here's the thing. Claire is willing to testify. She kept records of everything. Her evidence, combined with your evidence, creates a pattern. That makes our case much stronger. There's more, Amanda added. We pulled Preston's financial records through the court system. He's made some expensive purchases recently. A new car, some expensive furniture, a vacation to Europe. He's been using credit cards linked to accounts that have your name on them. My name. Rochelle sat up straighter. How is that possible? He never fully removed you from some of the business accounts, James explained. Which means he's been using accounts with your name attached to fund his lifestyle. That's identity theft and fraud. Very provable fraud. We've also found discrepancies in the loan documents, Amanda continued. The signatures don't match. Your actual signature has certain characteristics, a specific way you form your letters. The signatures on the loan papers are close but not exact. A forensic handwriting expert can testify to that. Richard leaned forward. Here's what we're proposing. We file criminal charges against Preston for identity theft, fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. Simultaneously, we file a civil suit to recover your property, your business, and damages. The criminal charges will get the police involved, which adds pressure. The civil suit gets you your life back. How long will it take? Rochelle asked. The criminal case could move relatively quickly, maybe 3 to 6 months, Richard said. The civil case might take longer. But once the criminal charges are filed, Preston will know we're serious. He might agree to a settlement rather than risk prison. I want him to go to prison, Rochelle said, and her voice was hard. I want him to pay for what he did. I understand, Amanda said. And he might. But I want you to prepare for the possibility that he could make a deal. Plead guilty to lesser charges, agree to repay everything in exchange for reduced jail time. That happens a lot in cases like this. As long as I get my bakery back, Rochelle said. As long as everyone knows what he did. As long as he can't do this to anyone else. We'll make sure of it, Richard promised. That night, Rochelle told Thomas everything over dinner. He had invited her and Imani to his house, a beautiful place in the suburbs with a big backyard. Imani was playing on the swing set Thomas had in his yard while the adults talked on the patio. How do you feel about it? Thomas asked. Knowing he did this to someone else before you? Angry, Rochelle admitted. And stupid. I should have seen the signs. I should have protected myself better. You trusted someone you loved, Thomas said. That's not stupid. That's human. They sat in comfortable silence for a while watching Imani play. Then Thomas said, Can I ask you something personal? Sure. What do you want to do when this is all over? After you get your bakery back, what's the dream? Rochelle thought about it. I want to rebuild. I want Sweet Grace Bakery to be what it was before, maybe even better. I want Imani to grow up seeing her mother run a successful business so she knows women can do that. She paused. I want to matter again. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Thomas said. You already matter though. You know that, right? Rochelle looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had helped her for no reason other than kindness. Who had given her a job, a home, hope. Who was spending his own money and resources to help her fight for justice. Why are you really doing all this, Thomas? She asked quietly. He was quiet for a long moment. I told you about Joseph Price, the man who helped me. What I didn't tell you is that he died 2 years ago. Cancer. I never got to fully thank him. I never got to show him that his investment in me, both financially and personally, made a difference. So I guess I'm doing this partly for him. To honor his memory by being the kind of person he believed I could be. He would be proud of you, Rochelle said softly. I hope so, Thomas replied. And honestly, Rochelle, helping you has reminded me why I do this work. It's easy to get caught up in board meetings and profit margins and forget that business is really about people. You've reminded me of that. Imani ran over then, breathless and happy. Mr. Bennett, can we come back another time? This is the best swing set ever. Thomas laughed. You can come back anytime you want, Imani. You're always welcome here. Driving home later, Imani chattered about the swing set and the cookies Thomas had given her and how nice his house was. Rochelle listened and smiled, but her mind was on the investigation. On Preston. On the confrontation that was coming. She was ready for it. Whatever happened next, she was ready. The criminal charges were filed on a rainy Tuesday morning. Richard called Rochelle at work to tell her it was done. Preston will be served with papers today, he said. The police will probably want to interview him. Things are going to move quickly now. Good, Rochelle said. Let them move quickly. That afternoon her phone rang. It was a number she recognized instantly. Preston's number. The number she had once called dozens of times a day to say, I love you, or don't forget we have dinner plans, or thank you for being you. Now seeing it on her screen made her feel cold. She answered. Hello, Preston. What the hell do you think you're doing? His voice was angry, aggressive. The police just showed up at the bakery. Your bakery, which is mine now. They're accusing me of fraud. This is harassment, Rochelle. It's not harassment, Rochelle said calmly. It's justice. You can't prove anything, Preston snapped. You signed those papers. You gave me power of attorney. Everything I did was legal. No, it wasn't, Rochelle said. You forged signatures. You took out loans in my name without my knowledge. You stole my business, my home, my life. And now you're going to pay for it. I'll fight this, Preston said. I have lawyers too. You think you can win against me? Yes, Rochelle said simply. I do. Who's helping you? Preston demanded. You don't have money for lawyers. Who's paying for this? That's none of your business. It's that Bennett guy, isn't it? I heard you're working for him now. What did you do, sleep with him to get his help? Rochelle's hand tightened on the phone. You don't get to talk to me like that anymore, Preston. You don't get to intimidate me or insult me. Those days are over. This isn't over, Preston said. Not by a long shot. He hung up. Rochelle sat at her desk, shaking. But not from fear. From anger and determination. Preston thought he could still bully her, still make her back down. He was wrong. She called Richard immediately and told him about the call. He's going to fight this hard. He's not going to make it easy. We expected that, Richard said. But Rochelle, you should know you don't have to talk to him. If he calls again, don't answer. Let everything go through the lawyers. Okay, Rochelle agreed. That evening, Thomas stopped by her apartment unannounced. He had a concerned look on his face. Richard told me about Preston's call. Are you okay? I'm fine, Rochelle said. Angry but fine. I wanted to make sure you felt safe, Thomas said. If you're worried about Preston showing up here or bothering you, I can arrange for security. I don't think that's necessary, Rochelle said, though privately she wondered if Preston might try something. He had always had a temper, though he'd hidden it well when they were dating. Now that everything was falling apart for him, who knew what he might do? Just in case, Thomas said, I'm giving you this. He handed her a business card. This is a security company I use. If you ever feel unsafe, call this number. They'll send someone immediately. It's already paid for. Just call if you need it. Thank you, Rochelle said, taking the card. Thomas hesitated, then said, Rochelle, I hope you know you can call me too. Anytime. If you need anything, even just to talk, I'm here. Something in his voice made Rochelle look at him more carefully. There was a warmth in his eyes, a concern that went beyond just being helpful. For the first time, she wondered if Thomas felt something more than just charitable interest in her situation. I appreciate that, she said softly. You've been so kind to me. To us. I don't know how to repay that. You don't have to repay it, Thomas said. Just, be okay. That's enough. After he left, Rochelle thought about Thomas Bennett for a long time. He was a good man. A genuinely good man. And if she was being honest with herself, she had started to care about him as more than just someone helping her. She enjoyed talking to him. She looked forward to seeing him at work. She liked the way he was with Imani, patient and kind. But it was too soon. Too complicated. She was still legally tied to Preston through the various fraud cases. Her life was still a mess. She couldn't think about romance now. Could she? The weeks passed. Imani settled into school and made friends. Rochelle got better at her job and earned praise from her supervisors. The legal case moved forward slowly but steadily. James continued investigating. Amanda and Richard filed motions and gathered evidence. Preston hired expensive lawyers and tried to fight everything. One evening, about 2 months after the charges were filed, Rochelle got a call from Amanda. Preston's lawyers reached out. They want to negotiate a settlement. Already? Rochelle was surprised. The evidence against him is strong, Amanda explained. The criminal charges are particularly damaging. He's looking at possible prison time. His lawyers are smart enough to know that. They want to make a deal before this goes to trial. What kind of deal? They're willing to return your business and property, pay restitution for damages, and Preston will plead guilty to reduced charges. In exchange, we agree not to pursue the maximum penalties. What would his sentence be? Rochelle asked. Probably 2 to 3 years with possibility of parole after 18 months. Plus probation and community service. Rochelle thought about it. Part of her wanted Preston to face the maximum punishment. But another part of her just wanted this nightmare to be over. She wanted her bakery back. She wanted to move forward with her life. What do you think I should do? She asked Amanda. That's entirely your decision, Amanda said. But I'll tell you this. If we go to trial, it could take another year. You might win and he might get more time. Or the jury might be unpredictable. This settlement guarantees you get everything back. Can I think about it? Of course. Take a few days. Talk it over with people you trust. Rochelle talked to Thomas that night. He listened carefully, then said, What does your gut tell you? That I want my bakery back more than I want revenge, Rochelle admitted. Is that wrong? Not at all, Thomas said. Revenge doesn't actually make people feel better. Justice does. And getting your life back, that's justice. Then I'll take the settlement, Rochelle decided. The settlement negotiations took 2 weeks. During that time, Rochelle had to meet with Preston's lawyers, go through financial records, and sign countless documents. It was exhausting and emotionally draining. Finally, everything was agreed upon. Preston would transfer back all property and business ownership to Rochelle. He would pay her $50,000 in damages. He would plead guilty to fraud and identity theft. And he would serve at least 18 months in prison. The day the settlement was finalized, Rochelle had to appear in court. Preston was there with his lawyers. It was the first time she had seen him face to face since everything fell apart. He looked different. Thinner. Older. Worried. The confident, charming man she had once loved was gone, replaced by someone who looked cornered and desperate. The judge reviewed the settlement agreement and asked Rochelle if she understood and agreed to the terms. Yes, Your Honor, Rochelle said clearly. I agree. The judge asked Preston the same question. Yes, Preston muttered. Mr. Cole, the judge said sternly, you have admitted to defrauding Ms. Davis, forging her signature, stealing her property and business, and destroying her credit. This court wants to make clear that this behavior is criminal and will not be tolerated. You are fortunate that Ms. Davis has agreed to this settlement rather than pursuing maximum penalties. You will serve 18 months in prison followed by 5 years probation. You will pay restitution of $50,000. You will have no contact with Ms. Davis or her daughter. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Preston said quietly. Ms. Davis, the judge turned to her, I want to commend you for your strength in pursuing this case. Too many victims of this kind of fraud give up. You didn't? I hope this settlement allows you to rebuild your life. Thank you, Your Honor, Rochelle said, tears in her eyes. After court in the hallway, Preston's lawyer stopped Rochelle. My client would like to speak to you. Just for a moment. Rochelle's first instinct was to refuse. But something made her agree. 1 minute. Preston approached her, and up close she could see the guilt in his eyes. Rochelle, Don't, she cut him off. Don't apologize. Don't try to explain. I don't want to hear it. I just want you to know, Preston said quietly, I didn't plan to hurt you. At first, I genuinely cared about you. But then I saw an opportunity and I took it. And once I started, I couldn't stop. I'm sorry. You're not sorry you did it, Rochelle said coldly. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. Maybe, Preston admitted. But for what it's worth, I'm glad you got your bakery back. You always were a better baker than me. Goodbye, Preston, Rochelle said. I hope prison teaches you something about how to treat people. She walked away without looking back. Thomas was waiting for her outside the courthouse, and when she emerged into the sunlight, he smiled at her. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free," Rochelle said. "Finally free." That afternoon, Rochelle went to 7th Street to see her bakery for the first time in months. Thomas came with her. The shop looked different. Preston had changed the sign, painted the walls, rearranged the layout. It hurt to see what he had done to her grandmother's dream. But it was hers again. Legally, officially hers. "We'll fix it," Thomas said, reading her expression. "We'll make it exactly how you want it." "I want to reopen," Rochelle said. "I want to bake again. I want people to know that Sweet Grace Bakery is back." "Then that's what we'll do," Thomas said. "I'll invest in the renovation. We'll be business partners. You do the baking, I'll handle the business side. Fair?" "More than fair," Rochelle said. "Thank you, Thomas. For everything." Thomas looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that made Rochelle's heart beat faster. "Rochelle, I need to tell you something." "Okay," she said, suddenly nervous. "Over these past few months, getting to know you and Imani, helping with your case, watching you rebuild your life, I've developed feelings for you. Real feelings. I know the timing might not be ideal, and I understand if you're not ready for anything like that. But I wanted to be honest with you." Rochelle stared at him. Part of her had known this was coming. Part of her had hoped for it. But hearing it out loud was different. "Thomas, She started, then stopped. "I care about you too. You've been so good to us. But I'm scared. My last relationship destroyed my life. I don't know if I'm ready to trust someone again." "I understand," Thomas said gently. "I'm not asking you to make any decisions right now. I just wanted you to know how I feel. Take all the time you need." They stood in front of the bakery, and Rochelle felt the weight of everything that had happened. The betrayal, the struggle, the kindness, the hope. Her life had been torn apart and was now being rebuilt, piece by piece. And this man standing beside her had been there for every step. "Can we take it slow?" she asked quietly. "Can we just see where things go without pressure?" Thomas smiled. "We can take it as slow as you want." The renovation of Sweet Grace Bakery took 3 months. Thomas hired contractors, and Rochelle worked with them to restore the shop to its original charm. The pale yellow walls came back. The vintage ovens were cleaned and repaired. New display cases were installed. The sign was repainted with the original logo that featured her grandmother's name in elegant script. During those 3 months, Rochelle continued working at Bennett Industries during the day and planning the bakery reopening at night. Imani helped pick out decorations and color schemes. Thomas stopped by regularly to check on progress and offer suggestions. Their relationship developed slowly, carefully. They went on dates, quiet dinners where they talked about their lives and dreams. They took Imani to the park and the movies. They held hands and shared gentle kisses. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just 2 people getting to know each other and building something real. "I never thought I'd trust someone again," Rochelle told Thomas one evening. They were sitting on her couch after putting Imani to bed. "But I trust you. I'll never give you reason not to," Thomas promised. The bakery reopening was scheduled for a Saturday in June. Rochelle spent the entire week before baking, preparing, making sure everything was perfect. She made her grandmother's recipes: red velvet cake, lemon bars, chocolate chip cookies, apple pie. The shop smelled like heaven. The morning of the reopening, Rochelle stood in the bakery before dawn, wearing a bright red apron, looking at everything she had rebuilt. It was better than before. Not just the physical shop but her life. She was stronger now. She knew what she was capable of surviving. Thomas arrived early to help set up. Imani came too, wearing a green dress and a big smile. Patricia brought flowers. Richard, Amanda, and James from the legal team showed up with congratulations cards. At 10 in the morning, Rochelle unlocked the door and turned the sign to open. People came. Her old customers who had missed her cakes. Neighbors who had heard about what happened and wanted to support her. Strangers who were curious about the reopening. By noon there was a line out the door. Mrs. Henderson, one of her first customers ever, hugged her tightly. "I'm so glad you're back, dear. That Preston didn't know how to make a decent cake. Welcome home." "Thank you," Rochelle said, wiping happy tears from her eyes. "It's good to be home." The local newspaper sent a reporter who wrote an article about her story. Not the painful details but the basics. Successful businesswoman defrauded by her partner, fought back with help from the community, and reopened her beloved bakery. The article ran the next week with a photo of Rochelle in her red apron, smiling in front of her shop. Business boomed. People loved her baking, but they also loved her story. She became known as the woman who wouldn't give up, who fought for what was hers, who rebuilt from nothing. Thomas was there for all of it. He handled the business finances, managed the accounts, dealt with vendors. But he never tried to take over. This was Rochelle's bakery and he made sure everyone knew it. He was just there to support her. 3 months after the reopening, on a warm September evening, Thomas took Rochelle to dinner at a nice restaurant. After they ordered, he reached across the table and took her hand. "I have something to ask you," he said. Rochelle's heart started beating faster. "Okay. These past few months being with you and Imani have been the happiest of my life. You're strong and kind and talented. You're an amazing mother. You're someone I admire deeply. And I love you, Rochelle. I'm in love with you." Tears filled Rochelle's eyes. "Thomas? I'm not asking anything from you right now," Thomas continued. "I just wanted you to know. I love you and whenever you're ready, whatever you want our future to be, I'm here." Rochelle squeezed his hand. "I love you too," she said softly. "I didn't think I could feel this way again after Preston. But you've shown me what real love looks like. Patient, kind, supportive. I love you, Thomas Bennett." They sat there, holding hands across the table, and Rochelle thought about how far she had come. From a street corner where her daughter tried to sell a pink bicycle to feed her, to this moment of hope and love and new beginnings. "Will you marry me?" Thomas asked suddenly, pulling a small box from his pocket. Rochelle gasped. She hadn't expected this. Not yet. But looking at Thomas, at his kind eyes and genuine smile, she realized she didn't need more time. She knew exactly what she wanted. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I'll marry you." Thomas slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly. Just like everything else about them fit perfectly. The wedding was small and beautiful, held in a garden on a sunny October afternoon. Imani was the flower girl, wearing a bright maroon dress and carrying a basket of roses. Patricia was Rochelle's maid of honor. Richard, Amanda, and James attended, along with many of Rochelle's bakery customers who had become friends. Thomas's family was there too, his sister and her kids, his elderly parents who welcomed Rochelle warmly. They had heard the whole story and had nothing but admiration for how she had fought back and rebuilt her life. As Rochelle walked down the aisle, she thought about her mother and grandmother. She wished they could be there to see this. But somehow she felt they were watching, proud and happy. The vows were simple but heartfelt. Thomas promised to always support her dreams, to be a good father to Imani, to stand beside her through whatever life brought. Rochelle promised to trust him, to build a life together based on honesty and love, to be his partner in everything. When they kissed, everyone cheered and Imani shouted, "Mommy married Mr. Bennett," with such joy that everyone laughed. The reception was held at a hotel with food catered by Sweet Grace Bakery. Rochelle had baked their wedding cake herself, a 3-tier red velvet masterpiece decorated with white roses. It was one of her grandmother's recipes, and every bite tasted like love and family history. During the reception, Richard pulled Rochelle aside. "I have some news. Preston's appeal was denied. He'll serve his full 18 months. "Good," Rochelle said simply. She didn't spend much time thinking about Preston anymore. He was part of her past and she had moved on. "Also," Richard continued, "remember Claire Williams? The woman he defrauded before you? She's filed a new lawsuit against him based on the evidence we uncovered in your case. She might finally get justice too." "I'm glad," Rochelle said. "He should have to answer for what he did to her as well." After the wedding, Thomas and Rochelle took Imani on a honeymoon to the beach. They spent a week playing in the sand, swimming in the ocean and just being a family. Imani called Thomas Dad, for the first time on that trip, and Rochelle saw tears in Thomas's eyes when he heard it. "Is it okay?" Imani asked, worried she had said something wrong. "Can I call you Dad?" "It's more than okay," Thomas said, hugging her tight. "It would make me so happy." They came back from the honeymoon to a thriving bakery and a full life. Rochelle worked at the bakery most days, creating new recipes and serving customers. Thomas continued running Bennett Industries but made time every evening to be with his family. They bought a house together, a beautiful place with a big kitchen where Rochelle could bake at home, and a backyard where Imani could play. The pink bicycle, the one Imani had tried to sell that desperate day, had a place of honor in the garage. They would never get rid of it. It was a reminder of where they had been and how far they had come. One evening, about 6 months after the wedding, Rochelle and Thomas sat on their back porch watching Imani play. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You know what I was thinking?" Thomas said. "What?" "We should start a foundation. To help other people who have been defrauded like you were. Provide legal help, financial support, whatever they need to fight back." Rochelle looked at him in surprise. "Really?" Really? You had help and it made all the difference. Not everyone has that. We could provide it. The Grace Foundation, Rochelle said thoughtfully. Named after my grandmother. Perfect, Thomas said, kissing her forehead. They started planning the foundation immediately. Thomas provided the initial funding. Rochelle reached out to Richard, Amanda, and James to serve on the board. They created a program to help victims of fraud get legal representation, find housing, and rebuild their credit. The first person they helped was a young man named Derek Johnson who had been scammed by a supposed business partner. The foundation paid for his legal fees and he won his case. Seeing him get justice reminded Rochelle of why this work mattered. Sweet Grace Bakery continued to thrive. Rochelle hired 2 employees to help with the baking and serving customers. She taught them her grandmother's recipes, passing on the tradition. She started teaching baking classes on weekends, sharing her knowledge with anyone who wanted to learn. Imani excelled in school. She made friends, joined the art club, and won an award for a painting she did of her family. In the painting, she drew herself, her mother, and Thomas standing in front of the bakery, all of them smiling. The teacher told Rochelle it was one of the most joyful paintings she had ever seen a child create. Life was good. Not perfect because life never is, but good. Real. Full of love and hope and purpose. 1 year after Thomas and Rochelle married, on a busy Saturday afternoon at Sweet Grace Bakery, a woman walked in. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with nervous eyes and a worn jacket. She stood at the counter looking at the cakes and cookies like she was memorizing them. "Can I help you?" Rochelle asked kindly. The woman hesitated. "Are you Rochelle Bennett? The owner?" "I am. I read about you. About what happened with Preston Cole. About how you fought back and got your business back." "That's right," Rochelle said, wondering where this was going. "My name is Tiffany Brooks," the woman said. "Preston did the same thing to me. After he got out of prison last month." Rochelle's blood ran cold. Preston was out? She had known he would be eventually, but she had pushed it from her mind. And now this woman was saying he had done it again? "Tell me everything," Rochelle said, coming around the counter. She flipped the sign on the door to closed, temporarily, and sat down with Tiffany at one of the small tables. Tiffany's story was heartbreakingly familiar. She had owned a small cafe. Preston had come in as a customer, charmed her, offered to help her expand. She had trusted him. He had slowly taken control of everything and now she had nothing. "I can't prove anything," Tiffany said, tears running down her face. "He was so careful. And I don't have money for lawyers. I'm living in my car right now. I saw your story and thought maybe you could tell me how you did it. How you fought back." Rochelle reached across the table and took Tiffany's hand. "You're going to be okay. I promise you. We're going to help you." "I don't understand," Tiffany said. "My husband and I started a foundation. We help people who have been defrauded. We provide lawyers, support, whatever you need. And Preston is not going to get away with this. Not again." Tiffany started crying harder. "Really? You would help me?" "Really?" Rochelle said firmly. "But first, have you eaten today?" Tiffany shook her head. "Come on," Rochelle said. "Let's get you some food. Then we'll call my lawyer." She brought Tiffany into the back of the bakery and made her a sandwich, gave her some cake and watched her eat. She called Thomas and explained the situation. He immediately said he would contact Richard and start the process of investigating Preston again. "This time he's going to prison for a long time," Thomas said. "He violated his parole by committing fraud again. The judge will not be lenient." While Tiffany ate, Rochelle sat with her and told her own story. How scared she had been, how hopeless everything seemed. But also how she had fought back, how people had helped her, and how she had rebuilt her life into something even better than before. "You're going to come out of this stronger," Rochelle told Tiffany. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you will. And you're not alone anymore. We're going to fight this together." Tiffany looked at her with something like hope beginning to show in her eyes. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Rochelle smiled. "Someone helped me once when I had nothing. A man stopped his car and bought my daughter's bicycle, and he changed our lives. Now it's my turn to help. That's how it works. We lift each other up." Over the next few weeks, the Grace Foundation took on Tiffany's case. James investigated and found that Preston had violated his parole in multiple ways. Richard filed charges and this time, Preston was arrested and denied bail. The case moved quickly. With Preston's prior conviction and the new evidence, the judge gave him the maximum sentence. 5 years in prison with no possibility of early release. Tiffany got her cafe back along with damages. Rochelle attended the sentencing. She looked Preston in the eye one last time and felt nothing but pity for him. He had wasted his life taking from others instead of building something real. And now he would spend years in prison with nothing to show for it. After the sentencing, Rochelle, Thomas, and Tiffany went out for coffee. Tiffany was crying happy tears. "I can't believe it's over. I can't believe I won." "You fought for what was yours," Rochelle said. "You deserved to win. What will you do now?" Thomas asked Tiffany. "Reopen my cafe," Tiffany said with determination. "And someday when I'm successful again, I want to help someone else the way you helped me." "That's the spirit," Rochelle said, smiling. As they sat there, Rochelle thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From rock bottom to rebuilding, from despair to hope, from being alone to having a family and purpose. She thought about that desperate day when Imani had tried to sell her pink bicycle, and about the stranger who had stopped to help. "Thomas," she said softly, reaching for his hand, "do you remember the first thing I said to you when you offered to help?" "You said you didn't need charity," Thomas recalled. "I was wrong," Rochelle said. "Everyone needs help sometimes. Accepting help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. And giving help isn't charity. It's humanity." Thomas squeezed her hand. "Joseph Price taught me that. And you've taught me that it's true." 6 months later, Sweet Grace Bakery celebrated its second anniversary of reopening. The shop was packed with customers, many of whom had become friends. Imani helped behind the counter, carefully handing customers their orders. Thomas managed the register. And Rochelle stood in the kitchen, wearing her red apron, baking cakes and cookies with love. The Grace Foundation had helped 12 more people by then. Each one had a story like Rochelle's, and each one was getting justice and rebuilding their lives. The foundation was growing, making a real difference. That evening, after closing, Rochelle stood in the empty bakery looking around. The pale yellow walls, the vintage ovens, the display cases full of her grandmother's recipes brought to life. This place represented everything she had lost and everything she had fought to reclaim. But it also represented something more. It represented resilience and hope. It represented the power of kindness and the importance of lifting others up. It represented second chances and new beginnings. Thomas came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How grateful I am," Rochelle said. "For you, for Imani, for this life. For the chance to help others. For everything." "I'm the grateful one," Thomas said. "You and Imani made my life complete." They stood there together, in the bakery that had been the center of so much pain and so much joy, and Rochelle felt peace. Real, deep, lasting peace. The pink bicycle was still in their garage at home. Sometimes Imani rode it around the neighborhood. Sometimes they just looked at it and remembered. That bicycle had been the symbol of their darkest moment, the last thing they had to sell just to survive. But looking back now, Rochelle realized it had also been the symbol of something else. Hope. The desperate hope of a little girl who believed someone would help. And someone had. Now Rochelle and Thomas were that someone for others. They were the ones who stopped when they saw someone struggling. They were the ones who offered help without expecting anything in return. They were the ones who proved that kindness still existed in the world. And that, Rochelle thought, was the best kind of legacy to leave behind. Not just a successful bakery or a happy family, but a reminder that goodness still existed. That people still cared. That hope was never truly lost. "Come on," Thomas said, breaking into her thoughts. "Let's go home to our daughter." "Our daughter," Rochelle repeated, loving the sound of those words. "Yes, let's go home." They locked up the bakery, turned off the lights, and walked out into the evening together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new customers, new people to help. But tonight was for family, for love, for celebrating how far they had come. As they drove home, Rochelle looked out the window at the city lights and smiled. Life was good. Life was really, truly good. And she would never take that for granted again.